Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force. I am your host, Brad Whipple, and this is a Star Wars podcast emergency episode. Oh boy.
Emergency!
Joining me, as always, Sarah Haas. Sarah, welcome to this hectic Thursday night. Oh boy, we got a lot to discuss. What's going through your mind?
I'm thinking that it is a great day, or I had the fantastic foresight in August to be like, my off day is Thursday. That is the day I take off every week. Genius work on past me, and I feel like I'm drowning a little bit. That was a lot, but we're out on the other side of it, and I'm really, 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 really excited to kind of talk about it, talk about what's going on, talk about the whole thing. So there's a lot.
Yes, there is a lot to go over. So we had the Disney Company's Investor Day event today. So this pretty much presented all of the future Disney projects that are coming out across, ESPN, Hulu, National Geographic, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, Disney Animation. A lot. There's a lot of stuff. The event was 4 hours long. Did not think I was going to sit through all 4 hours.
Me neither.
Lo and behold, we both did on Zoom chat together, freaking out. And it was just a lot to handle. On top of all that, compounding the emotions of today, Taylor Swift is releasing a new album at midnight.
Happy for you. I really am.
And there's a new episode of The Mandalorian tomorrow. What is happening?
Oh boy.
Who decided all these events happening so closely was a good idea for my sleep schedule?
Yeah.
Somebody is attacking me, clearly.
Yeah. I mean, it was rough. I also did not really expect to sit through all 4 hours of that, and then I did. And, I feel like Star Wars podcasts of old used to be a lot of, like, very newsy stuff and a lot of talking about the most recent announcements. And for a lot of reasons, a lot of people have gotten away from that because there hasn't been as much news. People are talking about meta and all these other things that they love and are passionate about and aren't talking necessarily and reacting to things. And so it feels very weird to be in a reaction mindset again, at least for me, especially at the end of 2020 when, like, the last time I remember, like, waiting and watching was D23 last August, which feels like a lifetime ago. So it's just really interesting to be here. We didn't get Star Wars Celebration this year, and to just get this complete onslaught of information from the Walt Disney Company. And it's just a lot. It's really just a lot.
It really is. And we haven't really covered news a whole lot on this show because I do like to focus on the other aspects of Star Wars, like you mentioned, but there are occasions where we need to discuss it because this is so important, not only for Lucasfilm, but for Disney Plus as a streaming service. And also, I think you and I are pretty tapped into just media in general and, like, movies and film and, like, how we are changing our viewing habits and what people are interested in. Are movie theaters dying? I mean, recently HBO Max, they're going to be releasing all of their hit films next year, like Dune and Matrix 4, simultaneously on the streaming service and in theaters. And then after 1 month, only theaters. So, like, that really changes the environments of the movie industry. And then to now get all of these announcements that are very TV, Disney Plus original series heavy focused.
They're D2C.
Maybe with the exception of
we're just talking about the D2C today. The direct to consumer, the D2C, the content creation, the D2C content. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I thought you were saying the DC. I was like, I didn't get the DC universe. No, what stream did you watch today?
Just me making a comment on all the jargon and the use of the word content.
Yeah, it's very weird watching, being fans tapped into this event, but really this is meant for, like, old investor people who have money.
But also just
and I'm just like, I like Anakin
the word
Skywalker.
Content is just, like, a horrible word.
It's a buzzword.
It is a meaningless, horrible word. What they're talking about is their films and television, and, like, the idea of the word content comes from, like, TikTokers and Viners and people who make online, like, native online content, videos and streaming and stuff. And the fact that it's adapted, like, or it's, like, been enveloped into the lexicon of like the biggest company in the world. I mean, they've probably been using it for a while, but now it is like the word to use. And it's just, I hate it. I hate it. I really do. It's just not, it is not my favorite word.
You know, I don't know if there's too many other words you really can use, but it's just kind of those like all-encompassing buzzwords. But I definitely get the sort of cringe factor that comes with, you know, content creator.
Yeah.
But besides the point, we're here to discuss the conference, the news. We're going to talk about stuff outside of Star Wars too, because I think this is a lot to handle. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'll put time codes in of where we talk about stuff and when we get to like really Star Wars stuff. But first thing I want to talk about is the actual event. Now, we have to consider D23 was supposed to be next year, 2021, got canceled and moved to 2022, which is also the same year Celebration got moved as well. Originally, it's supposed to happen in August. So my theory is this was kind of everything that was supposed to be at either Celebration or D23. And Disney usually doesn't have investor calls that are this long, or in this format especially, you don't have virtual webcasts where we're looking at things like new logos and new footage and watching people present. That's something that's typically reserved for Hall H at Comic-Con or for the main stage at Star Wars Celebration. So this is a pretty unique thing. I actually love that they did this. It kind of rivaled something of the DC metaverse, I think it was, or the DC Dome, I think it was called back in the summer. Fandom, yeah. Which that event was like amazing, and I guarantee you this was Disney's reaction to that, because they went, oh God, look at how well this is trending amongst people who love DC content. We should probably do that. And like, it shouldn't have taken you this long to figure that out. But I'm glad you all did finally, because this event was spectacular. Sarah, what did you think of this DC or this Disney call?
I thought it was really interesting, and I felt that it really played to the best of both worlds. The investor call is not necessarily meant for the plebes, the rest of us, but by making it this streamable event, we all really could get clued in on it. And while we may not have been able to see every trailer or every sizzle reel, we were able to get the gist of everything. And it really did feel like a big event. Again, they dropped the schedule right at the top, and they're like, here's the 4 hours that we're talking. And it really floored me. I was like, oh no, we're not getting content, announcements for another hour. But it was really interesting, and I thought that it was really well produced, and thought that it was well put together and engaging throughout. And the speakers were all, they spoke well and were articulating the information that they needed to get across, I think, quite well. And it worked. I mean, they hooked me for all 4 hours of it. So, damn.
Yeah. I mean, we got through the Star Wars section, and I was like, I am emotionally drained. My head hurts. My brain hurts. I'm thirsty. I need to drink water. Oh my God, I haven't drank water all day. Oh my God. And then I was like, wait, we haven't watched Pixar. We haven't watched Disney animation. We haven't even gotten to Marvel yet. Holy crap. So I do think that this event made it like more accessible than typically it is, because usually the investor calls are just calls only. You can listen to it. It's kind of boring. Occasionally Bob Iger might bring something up, or Bob Chapek might bring something up, and you're like, oh, like that one time Bob Iger was like, Solo's coming out, and we're going to find out how Han Solo got his name. And everyone's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So this was a little more organized, which I appreciated. And I like how they made it more of a spectacle to kind of get people interested to actually listen to this call and kind of like unify everybody and get everybody very excited. And again, it's just accessibility. And I was appreciative that they did that, because in the year 2020, we don't have many things to feel joy over. And this is one of the few things I will remember this year of sort of this Comic-Con scale event that we got to witness. It felt like being at Celebration. It felt like being at Comic-Con, and that's great. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, it definitely felt like all the events rolled into one. It was like the announcement train was, picking up announcements as the, for Celebration and for D23 next year. And then they realized the announcement train wasn't going to take off any announcements. And they couldn't go around with a mile-long train for the next year and a half around the country. So they had to get rid of all those announcements so they can get some new announcement passengers on. This is a terrible metaphor, but I really do think that this was the equivalent, of the Hall H, of the Celebration main stage, of, D23, the big to do. So it was cool.
So I want to talk about our top things from the event before we get into Star Wars discussions.
Yeah.
So what were your top non-Star Wars things that they revealed at the event?
Ooh, great question. I thought that the WandaVision trailer was really good.
Yes.
I thought that let me get the name of it. It was the African science fiction series.
Iwaju.
That one looks and sounds really, really interesting. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. And I also am so excited. I was like so upset. I'm like a little grumpy that everything is a spinoff of everything. Everything is a spinoff series of everything.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that. But then they spin off like Princess and the Frog and Tiana. And they do have a Tiana musical comedy show. And they're going to have a Moana musical comedy show. And I was like, shit, you've got me. You got me real good, because I'm going to be sitting up until the wee hours of the morning to watch those. And that, and then Disenchanted, which we kind of knew was coming, but like, I love Enchanted. And so I'm really thrilled about that.
Yeah, it's a strange feeling, right? Because you want to talk about the new versus old, and are we actually expanding our horizons, or are we just continuing to mine the same barrel of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you made a point before we were talking about, like, are we hypocrites?
We are. And by we, I do mean me. But yes. I also, challenge everybody to look at themselves, because, I mean, here's the thing. I want them to do new things. I want them to get weird. I want it to get wacky. I want them to explore original ideas. I want them to do brand new stuff. But at the end of the day, that is not guaranteed printing money for them. And so it makes sense. It makes business sense to spin off everything, sequel everything, make new versions of everything. And it's disappointing, but like that's where we are right now. And at the end of the day, some of it is really going to hit. And I think the Moana series is really going to hit with me. So I live in that contradiction, and that's just my life.
Ultimately, it is a business decision, and you have to think about this in terms of their long-term plan, because at the end of the conference, they noted that the Disney Plus price is going to go up to $7.99 per month, which I'm fine with that. It's $1 difference.
Capitalism.
We're getting a lot more stuff, yeah. So that's fine. Right now, as of the 2019 Investor Day in April, they had 60 to 90 million, I think, forecasted
by 2024.
For 2024. And now by the end of 2024, at this Investor Day, their estimate is 230 to 260 million versus 60 to 90 million originally. So they are trying to somehow grow their service to something beyond Netflix, which I think is like at 182 million worldwide, which is a crazy amount of people streaming Netflix. So it's like, how do you get people to tune in to Disney Plus? And it's really hard initially to grab people with content, especially with something like Disney that is not familiar to them. Mm-hmm. And I think what they're really trying to do is like create this huge slate of stuff that we recognize and love, get people to buy into it. And my hope, it's not a guarantee, but my hope is eventually it will lead to newer, more original projects, newer challenges, those sorts of things, because they ultimately cannot mine that same barrel forever. But I do think it's kind of one of those things of like an entryway. They can to an extent, though. I think it can't happen forever, because I do think there is a point that you reach where people are like, this is boring. But I think in terms of the excitement levels and getting a lot more people subscribed to Disney Plus, this is kind of what they have to do at first. And it definitely kind of makes me worrisome, but also makes me excited, because I do love things like Zootopia and Baymax, Big Hero 6, Moana, Tiana from Princess and the Frog. Like, I love all these things. And Kanto is going to be a new musical, which is super fun. Raya and the Last Dragon's coming to Disney Plus as a premiere access. I'll probably pay $30 to watch Raya and the Last Dragon, to be honest, because I'm not going to the movie theater anytime soon, and I really want to watch that film right when it comes out.
I will, unfortunately for my wallet, pay $30 probably to watch Kelly Marie Tran and to support Kelly Marie Tran, and I'm really frustrated about it, because I don't want to pay $30 to support the premiere access thing, because I think that price tag is absurd. But
although it might be different for Raya. I mean, for Mulan, it's a little bit different. Did they mention if it was going to be $30 still, or do we know?
What I think happened is that they proved to themselves that they can do that and that it will sell. And so I don't think they're going to lower that price, which is, their prerogative. But it's a little steep if you're a recent grad person who will probably be the only one watching that movie.
It is. It's possible, though, too, that maybe the whole HBO Max thing has maybe made them rethink their pricing model. So we don't know for sure, but I doubt it. So Disney Animation, I think, was a lot of the familiar. I think Pixar is definitely going in some new directions, though. We're getting a new Lightyear film with Chris Evans as not Buzz Lightyear himself, the original character that inspired Buzz Lightyear, which I think is kind of funny. Doug Days. But the thing that I thought was kind of cool was the long form series called Win or Lose, which I think is the first time Pixar has ever delved into TV series, which I think is going to be really cool and something new for them, especially. But really, I think the biggest thing for me outside of Star Wars was Marvel. Mm-hmm. Marvel, holy shit. They kind of dominated the show right there at the end, the huge exclamation point, and I think they put them there for a reason because They had the most content. I mean, for me, the things I was most excited for were, Black Panther 2 is really exciting. Fantastic Four got announced. There's a lot of new spin-off series coming, like with Armor Wars and Baby Groot in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special.
LOL.
Secret Invasion's coming. Haley Steinfeld is confirmed for Hawkeye. Thor: Love and Thunder starting soon. They still didn't give me my Spider-Man 3 title. What the heck, you cowards?
They didn't touch it at all. That was wild, truly.
There's going to be a balance. I don't think you can go completely original with everything. I think you have to have some sort of anchors. But I do think Disney is kind of one of those companies that really is a little bit on the conservative side when it comes to their content. We've clearly seen that with all their live action remakes. And I hope that as they get more subscribers, they start to do different things. That is my hope. I think this is really just a subscriber play, and that's all it is. And they know over these next 3 years to get them to that 2024 number, because all these projects are coming out in the next 3 to 4 years. Past 2024, we don't know what that's going to look like, what that content's going to look like. Could be completely different, completely original. It doesn't make sense forever to continue mining that field of stuff. And I think they have to evolve at some point, especially as other studios do that. So let's get into Star Wars, Sarah.
Yeah.
That's why we're really here. We're a Star Wars podcast. But we also wanted to talk about all the other great things that we were excited about, because there's just a lot.
I do want to shout out to Marvel because it looks like they are getting like extra weird. And I am so here for and I tweeted about this, aggressively and unapologetically weird. And I think Star Wars misses some of that. And that can go into our Star Wars discussion. But I do just want to shout out Marvel, because while I don't have a lot of stake in Marvel, I see the movies generally once. I don't have a lot of merch or anything. It doesn't dominate my thoughts or anything like that, or my purchasing habits or my fandom habits. But that was really impressive. I really like that they seem to have a lot of really exciting and really different kinds of things coming out.
And interconnectivity too. I mean, they talked about Miss Marvel being in Captain Marvel too. Miss Marvel looks incredible, and I'm excited for it because, again, another instance of a diverse cast and crew creating this new show and this new superhero that many aren't familiar with. She-Hulk coming. I mean, the What If series, where we're kind of testing these hypotheticals in an animated format, which Star Wars, you should absolutely do that, because people would love that kind of stuff. And we'll kind of get into the ramifications of that in a second, because I know we have some thoughts on the canon and everything. But let's start with the biggest news. I think arguably is one of your favorites. So you want to kick us off with it? It's a big one.
Are we talking about Patty Jenkins?
We are.
I love to move fast and speed of any kind. I think that's because I grew up the daughter of a great fighter pilot, and every day I would wake up and go outside and look up, see my father and his squadron taking off and their F-4s roaring across the sky, and it was the most thrilling thing still I've experienced in my entire life. So when he lost his life in service to this country, it ignited a desire in me to turn all of that tragedy and thrill into one day making the greatest fighter pilot movie of all time. But try as I might and look as I did, I couldn't find the right story ever. I kept looking and looking, but I just couldn't find the right one until now. Now I found a movie about two things I love. So I'm going to see you very soon.
Patty Jenkins. Brad can attest to this. We were on a Zoom call and he caught, like, I heard Patty Jenkins' name and I burst into tears. Just started sobbing. And Brad was like, "Oh no, are you okay?" And I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. Patty Jenkins is directing the next theatrical Star Wars release. Incredible. It's going to be Rogue Squadron. She wants to make one of the greatest fighter pilot films. She's the daughter of a fighter pilot. And I am just so overwhelmed about this. I don't know. I'm not typically somebody who's a fighter pilot kind of person. That's not really my vibe of film, like war action is not totally it in this sense. But Patty Jenkins, I'm so thrilled.
And I will challenge you, even though that's not your favorite, do you think maybe that's not your favorite genre because maybe the right person hasn't done it for you? Do you think for you and other people out there who are like, I don't really like gritty war stuff, gritty fighter pilot stuff, maybe we just needed something like a Patty Jenkins, someone, a woman, to direct a film like this to show us there is a different way to tell these stories. And look, these stories can also relate to a different audience, not just, the kind of dude bros of old who like the old Rogue Squadron games. I love the Rogue Squadron games, but I'm so excited that she's especially taking the reins on this. The director of the Wonder Woman franchise. She's going to be the first woman to direct a feature film in the Star Wars universe. Right behind Victoria Mahoney, who was the first woman to serve on a directing team as the second unit director on The Rise of Skywalker. So this is a pretty big, monumental thing for Star Wars. I mean, this is, this is not like reserving, women can only direct TV shows. No, she's going to be the next Star Wars film that we watch in theaters.
It's huge. And I just remember how much Wonder Woman meant to me seeing that movie. Just the way that Patty went about directing it and bringing the character to life on screen in such a bold way, in such an empathetic way. I was just stunned after seeing that movie. And so I'm so thrilled that we're going to be seeing Wonder Woman 1984 at the end of this year. And I'm so thrilled that the next Star Wars movie back is going to also be from Patty Jenkins. And, you're right. It might be that I just have not seen the right film directed by the right person for me. I associate these kind of fighter pilot films with a very masculine, male-dominated,
like Top Gun,
war, kind of look. And that's not saying I do dislike war films. That's not necessarily the case. But they're not for me. Like, I really love 1917. That's great. Shout out to 1917. But, that's a whole other thing in itself. So I am really excited about this. And I hope that it pushes the story in the galaxy forward, because it does say that somewhere it used to, it says over here, the story will introduce a new generation of starfighter pilots as they earn their wings and risk their lives in a boundary-pushing, high-speed thrill ride and move the saga into a future era of the galaxy. So I don't know if this means that it's post-TROS in some way, but I think that perhaps is the most interesting part of it, that it could be post-TROS and legitimately the farthest we have gone in the timeline. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm hoping for, that it doesn't quite exist in those 30, 40 years of the Star Wars movies we have right now.
To me, it almost seems like if it could take place post-TROS, it's going to be a sort of extinguishing the remnants of the First Order sort of film. I got to imagine, like every other film, there's always remnants of some sort of...
Just want to say Alphabet Squadron? Could this vibe like Alphabet Squadron vibes? Because we know I live for that shit. Okay, that's it.
Ooh, maybe this is our Alphabet Squadron film. No, we can't clown ourselves here. I'm just going to get my hopes up too much. But I do think that could maybe be the case where maybe, I don't think we'll get a Rey. I hope we don't get any of those characters. Like, leave them be. Let Patty Jenkins create some new characters. I'm sure there'll be some crossover of some sort, maybe. It'd be interesting to see where this takes us. And, I think there's only so many time periods that you can visit too in Star Wars. And we'll talk later on where some of the other ones are taking place, but I think the future era of the saga, beyond the saga, is definitely something that we can mine, but also not have to keep exploring the same characters. Because at some point you do have to look at the future of the galaxy. You have to go beyond Episode 9, because if you're just limiting yourself to Episode 1 or before, or like in between each of the movies, there's only so much story you can tell. And I think this is going to be a really groundbreaking film that can say, okay, here's where we go beyond the Skywalker saga, you know?
Star Trek Beyond.
Yes.
Except for Star Wars. Yeah, I think there's a possibility there that it is something really brand new. And I have hope in that sense. So that's what I'm hoping. Yeah. And I have a lot of faith in Patty Jenkins as a filmmaker. I loved Wonder Woman. So it means a lot.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
We're kind of in this thing where we really need to support Patty Jenkins and make sure that we go out and see this film in theaters to show that, like, this is a film we want to see. This is the type of filmmaker we want to see. It's unfortunate too that has to be the case, right? That can't, the film can't speak for itself, and sometimes the box office is much more of a factor than I would like it to be. But that's kind of how we evaluate the success of films nowadays, and it's kind of just the nature of the beast. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I would definitely like to hear your perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I don't want to blindly support this film, in the sense that I think that would be doing a disservice to the work that everybody's putting in. But I do think that it's important that for me, for somebody who this idea I'm not completely on board with from the start, to always keep an open mind about it, to continue to learn more about it and learn who's behind it. I would love to see even more women behind the scenes in this movie, and I hope that we learn about that as well. I hope to see women prominently featured in this movie, and a lot more diversity in this movie as well. So I don't want to blindly support it, but I want to champion it, and I will continue to champion it until it has been proven otherwise for me.
Yeah. Yep. Trust is still earned, but definitely something we should keep a keen eye out for and really champion, I think. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Now, speaking of fresh takes in the Star Wars universe, so Taika Waititi's film was mentioned, and we didn't get a date on it. We didn't get really many details except that weird Star Wars font that looks like Schoolhouse Rock, which I was like, ooh, what's your function, Star Wars? It looks pretty cool, but Kathleen Kennedy says it's going to be fresh, unexpected, and unique. His enormous talent and sense of humor will ensure that audiences are in for an unforgettable ride. So again, there's not really much to go off here, except the fact that I would imagine his film comes after Patty Jenkins' film. I think there's like a 2 or 3 year difference between these next 3 films.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be interested to see where his film takes place, how much control they let him have over it in terms of his style. I mean, we very much saw in Mandalorian Chapter 8, very Taika Waititi, and that was a pretty fun ride there, I think. And I loved seeing his tone come across the screen, because you can't hire a lot of these filmmakers and put them in a box. You have to let them be themselves, and that's when the authenticity comes across the screen.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think that for this film, this is where I think Star Wars can get really, 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 really weird. And that's all I want. Make it really, 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 really weird. And with the images we got, that Schoolhouse Rock Star Wars logo with the kind of galaxy background that Kathleen Kennedy stood in front of, it does make me wonder if this is going to be perhaps an animated feature. That might be kind of out of the realm of, Taika's work, but It kind of has that vibe a little bit. And I think
that would be a flex.
That would be so cool, honestly. But, who knows? Who knows? I think this might be 2025 or 2027, or, might be 2059 and we're all old. But who knows?
Please, God, no.
I think it was interesting, maybe a little weird, that they really did not extrapolate upon or share more about this picture. Just said, hey, remember that Taika Waititi movie we announced? We're still doing it. That was pretty much what we got here. And it does make me wonder if the Kevin Feige produced film is the Patty Jenkins directed film, because we know that Kevin Feige is also involved in a film that is doing something, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Rian Johnson trilogy of movies or whatever that maybe once was or will be in the far future of something that was happening or still is happening. Who knows? So
yeah, I don't think Kevin Feige is directing a film. I feel like people jumped on that so quick and were like, he's directing a film. He's not a director.
He's producing it, right?
He would be producing, yeah.
So that's what I think. Maybe the Patty Jenkins film is produced by Kevin Feige, but I don't know if those. I don't know.
Or
if
Taika's film, because he's a Marvel.
Great point.
He's an MCU director, so I think it'd probably be one of those two films. I think he's not getting his own film. He's just going to be attached to something that's already being made.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it wasn't really addressed. But that brings me to my next point, Sarah, is the Rian Johnson trilogy. So now we have Patty Jenkins' film, we have Taika's film. That puts us out to almost, I think, 2027, which would be that third film. So, like, when the heck are we getting Rian Johnson's trilogy? Somebody made a point that, on the Star Wars website, they took off Benioff and Weiss from future projects, but lo and behold, Rian Johnson is still on there. Oh. So that is kind of interesting that he's still on the website.
I didn't even know that.
And he wasn't been scrubbed from there. Yeah, it was brought to my attention because I tweeted after this event. I was like, I can assume it's not happening. I might delete that tweet because I feel like maybe I need to be more hopeful. Maybe it's one of these things where they said, hey, Ryan, we're going to give you 5 to 7 years to write your trilogy. You can write it, take your time with it, make something really great and unique because, you didn't really get your own trilogy the first time around. You're kind of thrown in middle of the sandwich to create this amazing film, in my opinion. I think maybe they're giving him some time because I think that's how he works. He took him 10 years to write Knives Out. He's writing Knives Out 2 right now. And I think maybe once he gets past that project and gets that in the bag, that we could be looking at that film in 2022 maybe. And at that point, maybe he's closing up on the trilogy he's writing. Do you think Rian Johnson's trilogy is still happening?
I want to have hope. Part of me says, no, we're never going to see it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. Half of me wants Rian Johnson to never touch Star Wars ever again. They don't deserve him. Trust happened. And that really did change a lot for me. At the same time, oh my God, all I want is more Rian Johnson Star Wars. That's it. That's literally it. How to buy my love and devotion to a franchise forever and ever and ever. Just make continuous Rian Johnson projects. I will eat them up. I will buy all the merch. I will attend the movie or show. I will rewatch and rewatch. How to Buy Sarah? Just produce Rian Johnson content. Why produce Rian Johnson films, movies, shorts, TV shows, short TV shows. I don't know. Do whatever you want. VR games. If he wants to write a video game, I don't care. I'd play it. I'd watch it. I'd support it. I don't know.
No, I'm with you.
I'm currently wearing a shirt that says written and directed by Rian Johnson. So that's the kind of person I am. And I really want more from him. And what his vision of Star Wars was to me aligned with what I want Star Wars to be and what I think Star Wars can be. And I think that's really missing in this lineup of announcements is that kind of similarity of vision for me. And we can talk about it more, but that's kind of a bummer. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I hope for more Rian Johnson. At the same time, I don't, but I have to hold out hope or else I die.
Yeah, I think I need to kind of take the approach that it's going to happen until I hear otherwise. And I really do. I really want to tell myself in the back of my mind, he has been giving time to work on this thing. And he's going to take his time with it because that's how he operates. He's not going to rush something out. He's not somebody that's just going to kind of bow to the corporate overlords and say, oh, you have 2 years to make this film. No, that's not how I work. And the reason they gave him his own trilogy is because he did such a good job on The Last Jedi. Basically, no complaints behind the scenes, no delays, nothing. Everybody had such an enjoyable experience on that film. And it's renowned as one of the best films. Also one of the most controversial films, just kind of based on the discourse and how we continue to fight about it 3 years later and argue with, horrible side of the fandom that has hated that film for all the wrong reasons. But I do think he's a talented filmmaker. And you can't deny the success of Knives Out, which was a whodunit that grossed over $300 million worldwide and was still in theaters in March when The Rise of Skywalker was on DVD. That film was chugging along. It was doing its thing. And that's noteworthy. And I think Lucasfilm should understand, they have such a talented filmmaker on their hands. I really do think, no offense, but like they need Rian Johnson more than Rian Johnson needs them. And they really have to take care of that, because if they lose it, it could be a big loss for somebody as renowned as him and who is continuing to grow as a filmmaker.
I think it is already a big loss. I think that not having him come back to direct 9 and give him the time that he apparently asked for or desired for 9 was a mistake. Yeah. I really do think that. And I don't know. It disappoints me that they never followed through with that book that they announced of all of his Last Jedi portraits that he took. I would love to see that happen. I would buy copies for myself and all my friends. Like, truly. I do not buy a lot of things. I am very frugal for a lot of reasons, but that's something I would dive into and spend money on because, like, his work I care so much about. So part of me thinks they've already lost him.
We'll see.
And his vision, but I really hope not. I don't know. I'm so of two minds about it.
I'm going to hold on to his own writing and saying that hope is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you see it, you'll never make it through the night. I don't see the announcements coming, but I'm going to try to hold on to hope no matter how hard it is. I was a little bit bummed after the event, and I tweeted that out, and I was like, it's not happening. But I really think I need to go back. Laura from Force Toast made me rethink it, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need to continue having hope, because once I don't have hope, it's like, what's there to look forward to from him in Star Wars? So I just got to take that approach. But that's kind of the larger film unveiling at this event. I think really the biggest announcements came in the realm of television for Star Wars. The film was at the very end of the Star Wars part, but TV was first and foremost. A couple of really big bombshell announcements, honestly. But I want to start with Sarah. What do you think is the future of Star Wars as it is now? And is Star Wars at this point in time meant for the big screen more so than the small screen on our TVs? Or do you think that Star Wars is moving towards a type of model where it is best told on the small screen with the occasional theatrical release that is really well taken care of and really well crafted over many, many years? Because as we know, this Patty Jenkins film is not coming out for 3 more years. We're getting lots and lots of TV shows that are kind of, following the typical TV production schedule that is normal, years, a year of making a show and then it's out. Mando season 2 filmed last year. It's out now. That's just how production works. And I think Lucasfilm kind of wants to turn itself into a sort of Marvel-esque sort of powerhouse. What do you think in terms of the medium Star Wars should exist in and where it's going?
Oh, Brad, you've just gone all the way around the can, and the worms are open. They're getting out. You've opened the can of worms.
Oh,
because you've asked
I hate
this.
Worms.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I actually
They're really like
worms.
gross. Kind of like, I mean, they're kind of cute. But I don't like when you go outside and it's like raining. It's like, why are they everywhere? Why?
Brad,
I don't want to step.
We need
on
to
them.
talk about this off podcast because worms are gifts. Worms are
no. I
gifts.
just don't want to hurt them. Is the point? Like,
well, yes,
I know as I
look
back
where
out of
you're
my
going.
driveway, I'm running over at least a couple. Like, I that hurts my soul. Anyways,
Okay.
Let's continue with
Anyway.
the can of worms.
The can of worms are open because you're asking me, somebody who is not a fan of The Mandalorian, this question. And so you're going to get a different answer from me, someone who is not a fan of The Mandalorian, than you are from yourself, who is a fan of The Mandalorian. I do not think that the innovative future of Star Wars is episodic in TV. I mean, I think that's business decision where they're going, but I don't think that's where they should be going.
Okay.
For me, at least, proof of concept has not been proven for me. I do not love Mandalorian. There are a bunch of reasons for this. One of them is that I do think it is a kind of shallow show. Just that's my view on it. It's like a planet hop, And so it has not been proven as a successful thing for me as a viewer, as a fan. And so I don't really know what the direction or vision or goal within Star Wars is right now, because this slate of projects is all over the board. just all over the board.
It's immense.
In terms of like when it's happening, what it connects to, you know, all of that jazz. I think that Star Wars is going the direction of the MCU, and that was reflected in some of the language that they used to talk about the Mandalorian spinoffs, and also kind of the Lando show. But I don't think that, as much as I'm excited about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor, those are the two projects that have me the most excited, and this is where we talk about being a hypocrite, because this is exactly where I'm a hypocrite. These are the shows I'm most excited about. At the same time, I want new things. At the same time, I don't like Mandalorian. And so, like, the new thing isn't working for me. So, I don't know. But the way that they talked about the Mandalorian, Rangers of the New Republic, and Ahsoka is that they are, like, spinning off and they will culminate in an event. So it's gonna be the Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. That's so Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. That's what it's gonna be. If you know that reference, shout out, because God bless you. Let's talk about it. It's a great crossover. But like that's what it's all leading up to, is That's So Sweet Life on Deck, or That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. And I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah.
So you definitely come from a unique perspective because you don't like The Mandalorian. I, for one, think I disagree. I think Mandalorian has been a great proof of concept, and the reasons for that being, I think you look at something like The Rise of Skywalker, which is not my favorite film by any stretch of the imagination, but you have Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams kind of calling all of the creative decisions. And I think there is an issue with that, right? When you're working on a film and it's kind of like this almost groupthink that's happening, but only between two people. And I think you run into issues there. Now with The Mandalorian, aside from Sarah, maybe the thoughts you have on the plot or the story, I think the actual concept and idea of having one visionary for the series, Jon Favreau, who was then surrounded by many directors, many writers, all creating one single product with a shared vision, but each bringing their unique spin to it. And this was something that was mentioned in the Art of Mandalorian book. I think that as a concept, taking The Mandalorian again out of it and just as a concept, I think that works better than movies. I think that works better than something like a sequel trilogy where it's like, oh, you had JJ directing, then Ryan, then JJ again. And then for your writers, you had JJ and Lawrence Kasdan, then you had Rian Johnson, then you had Chris Terrio and JJ. It's like, who is really making the shots? Like, what's the actual vision here? And at the end of the day, I didn't feel like the sequel trilogy really had a vision. I thought it did up through The Last Jedi, and that was kind of dashed for me in the final hour, which was really an unfortunate side effect of the trilogy. Whereas The Mandalorian, for me personally, I see its vision. I see what it's doing. I see a very pronounced and clear theme of each season. I see where it's going, what purpose it's trying to serve, why it's introducing some of the concepts that it is. And I know you don't see that, but you know, I do. And I think it's doing a much better job than the sequel trilogy could do of that. And that's why I think, you know, I still want to sit in a theater and watch a Star Wars film, but I would actually much rather watch more Star Wars on my couch, you know, get 8 hours of a fleshed out story with many different people getting input on it, than go to a theater, sit there for 2 hours and have to wait like 3 years for another Star Wars story. And I think to have this kind of cycle of like one TV show after another, for me personally, I'm going to enjoy. I'm not going to enjoy everything probably, but I would rather kind of have Star Wars sort of soaking in Star Wars constantly and like trying to find out what works and what doesn't. And hopefully that guides better creative decisions in the future. It's a lot of words. It's a lot of rambling I just did. But I think this is a really important talking point because like it is really like, what's the future of Star Wars and what's the future of the streaming service of Disney Plus and the way that we consume media and the possible death of movie theater experience as we know it. Mm-hmm. I don't think movie theaters are going away. I just don't think we'll ever watch movies the same again in theaters. I think that's kind of the Pandora's box has been opened.
Yeah.
With HBO Max, things are going to change. They're going to look way different. I don't know. My head's just kind of swimming in all directions. Can you stop me from rambling before?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
Please.
We're living in a really chaotic time, no doubt about it, and the future is definitely uncertain. And you know, I do get where you're coming from with the sense of a little bit of the democratization of the project, and having multiple hands in that project allows it to have more perspectives, and I don't disagree there. But at the same time, we both love Ryan's vision of The Last Jedi, and that was one person doing one thing. And I mean, part of it for me is that the creators aren't working for me. You know, I just don't think I necessarily vibe with the, you know, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, maybe outlook, or maybe just the things that they're choosing to focus on aren't for me. That's fine. So I don't know. I mean, I think you bring up really valid points. I have no reason to disagree with you. I mean, that's totally valid. And I mean, your point of view is definitely what I would probably argue that the majority of Star Wars fans think Star Wars should be. And so it'll be really interesting to see how the TV D2C, direct to consumer, evolves with
hashtag D2C.
Hashtag. I just tweeted earlier in the evening. I just tweeted D2C,
which is weird because alphabetically you're going C to D, so it's really throwing me off. They should have named it
Consumer
something else.
Direct. I don't know.
We don't know.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to see how it evolves, because obviously when we look at something like the MCU, that is something that evolved over a decade to do all of these different movies that all culminated in this event. And I think that's what we're working towards with these Mandalorian series. And we'll see if it works, you know?
Yeah.
It might not work and be kind of awkward. Like if you're not watching The Flash, but you're watching Legends of Tomorrow, and you're not watching, you know, it's kind of weird when they all cross over and you're like, I've missed half of the crossover because I don't watch these other shows. But I don't know if that's gonna be an issue that Star Wars has, if everybody's watching that circle or fat family of shows.
There's always healthy skepticism with everything, and I think everything should have that, right? I think you can't fully put your faith in something all the time, every time, because you can almost set yourself up for a disappointment, and then you're upset, and then you lose interest in said thing, and I think that's an unhealthy cycle. But I think, too, the good thing about having a lot of Star Wars, honestly, it's probably good for the franchise, because now it's taking, like, the pressures off of all these projects. Like, think about when we only had each of those one films every year. How much was writing on each of those films every single time it came out? It was like, this is Star Wars at this current point in time. This is everything Star Wars. This is the representation of the franchise and the direction that this is going. Now it's like, if you have all these different things coming out, it's kind of like, well, there's not really one thing that they're going towards, because all these different projects are so different. So it's not really like they're trying to tell us like only X. It's like now they're kind of trying to tell us like X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it kind of gets a little bit different there in the sense that, like, not so much as writing on something like The Last Jedi, and maybe that softens the discourse a little bit, because it's like, okay, yeah, I didn't like Mando, but at least I have the Bad Batch, or I didn't like the Mandalorian, at least I have Acolytes. You know, it's like you can kind of pick and choose what you want, and it almost like softens the blow of every project if it is not well received by certain groups of people, because it's like, okay, now I can pivot over to something else I like. I don't know.
Depends on how these series are all coming out, because right now Mando is the only thing, and I'm sitting here like, okay.
It does.
I mean, I think the future of Star Wars right now is in the publishing. They haven't let me down in a major way yet. So, you know, that's why I talk about books on this podcast most often. But, you know, we look at what the future of Star Wars is and could be, and who knows where it's going to end up. Because right now we have a lot of same. We have a lot of same. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, Lando, Ahsoka. Anybody else? Those are all people we know quite well.
But same can be okay if you introduce new thematic elements, and if you introduce new storylines and new characters. Like, I think same is okay sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, I am absolutely on the Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Andor train. I am like the conductor, choo choo, like come onto my train. Let's go to Hot Topic and get those, you know, t-shirts and Funko Pops. Like, I am conducting that train. But
Sarah,
also,
you're gonna buy a Cassian Funko Pop? Are you telling me
I will not
now?
buy any Funko Pops, but if anybody would else like to purchase Funko Pops for me, I will receive them.
Somebody clip it. Somebody clip Sarah saying that, so in 2 to 3 years, when she buys the Bail Organa Funko Pop, we can all make fun of her.
No, Brad, you gifted me the Bail Organa Funko Pop. I'm not buying it.
I'm not gonna. You're gonna be tempted. I'm not gonna buy it for you this time.
That's so mean. The backstory of this is that I don't buy any of the Funko Pops I own. I have received them all from gifts or subscriptions or whatever. Anyway, I want these things because they're characters I know and love, but I feel that when we give so much space to all of these projects, it does limit us within those 30, 40 years of the saga that we have. And it's kind of like, come on, there is a lot more that we could be doing, and it just feels like we're going at a snail's pace to get there.
Yep.
Because we know Obi-Wan Kenobi will bring in the big bucks.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to our earlier conversation where it's like, this is kind of part of the plan, and it's kind of what they have to do to get subscribers. And like, hopefully, again, capitalism's bad, but like, hopefully the end goal here is a lot more original, because you can't, once you do a Lando and an Obi-Wan series, you can't do them again. You have to go somewhere else. Once you do it once, you're not going to do it again. And if they do, I think that's a mistake.
But you can spin off.
You can spin off, but at least if it's a spin off of something new that we haven't explored, then I kind of have to wait to see case by case. But I want to talk first. Let's get into the actual shows and what's going on. You mentioned publishing. The High Republic starts in a couple of weeks. Probably one of the biggest surprises for me, honestly, was Leslie Headland's series. It's going to be called The Acolyte. It's going to be sort of this mystery thriller that takes place in the High Republic era, in the final days of the High Republic era, which the High Republic, I think we determined, or somebody on Twitter had mentioned that this takes place, the High Republic era is 300 to 100 years before the Phantom Menace. So if we're saying the end of the High Republic era, that's 100 years before Phantom Menace, Yoda's alive, that's interesting to me. It almost seems like this is sort of building the events into the Phantom Menace. Maybe the fact that the Sith are in the background and they're kind of coming back to fruition. Maybe we get to know a little bit about Plagueis. I mean, there could be some interesting things there that are introduced. We know it's going to be female-centric and kind of delve into some more martial arts stuff. So I'd be kind of cool to see maybe if it's this sort of like, mystery martial arts show with following a Jedi and kind of uncovering the dark secrets that are sort of boiling beneath the surface that the Jedi can't sense, especially after dealing with all the events of the Great Disaster.
The Great Hyperspace Disaster. I'm really excited about the High Republic in just the sense that I get to read 3 new books very, very soon, and that's super exciting for me. And I will say that I'm also thrilled that Leslie Headland is creating a project within this era that is new, is fresh in that sense, even though it does deal with, the Jedi Order, and do we have problems with the Jedi and how the Jedi are viewed and talked about? Yes, but there's also a lot there. It looks like it's going to be like a dark side kind of show, shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers. I'm curious as to what that will be. I do feel better about this description and how it was described in this stream than I did in the article that was released officially announcing this project. Or was it officially Renee's? I don't know. There was like that female-centric, Leslie Headland is directing the female-centric, whatever. I really don't like that description. It feels, ladies, here's your show. Here's the Star Wars show for the ladies. And I just didn't love how that was described, and that left a kind of weird taste in my mouth. But at the same time, I am interested in this description. It's probably going to likely be a woman main character, which is cool. And I'm interested in the Force. I love how people interpret the Force and use the Force, and so that's cool. So I don't know. I'm optimistic about this, but I'm also, this wasn't the project that I immediately was like, oh my god, I need that. Because I've not read Dark Disciple, I'm not a dark side person, kinda. Although, maybe I'm just playing myself right now. Who knows? But it's not the show that I went, oh yeah, that one's mine. That's how I felt about Andor.
Well, I'm just excited, especially that this publishing initiative that's happening is now getting a TV spinoff, which, I mean, that kind of gives more legitimacy to a lot of those books, and hopefully maybe drives more traffic for people to read the books. because
read the Star Wars books.
Star Wars books are really great and everybody should read them, but I can see where you're coming from with the whole female-centric thing. I kind of viewed it more as like they're just saying, it's going to follow a female character, which, I mean, there's not really many other ways you can say that without giving away plot details, I feel like. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising, too, given she did Russian Doll, and that was following a female lead, so, like, I would imagine she's doing the same thing with this show. But she had an interview recently, too, and I think she actually addressed some of the verbiage around female lead, and she was kind of saying, it's not just saying, like, oh, it's only for girls. It's just saying, there's going to be kind of this female perspective, but it's also going to have a lot of stuff for guys, too, and all sorts of audiences, And I was really happy to hear her say that, because it shows that she's kind of thinking of all these things in the back of her mind, and she's very articulate. She's very well calculated. She's also just super passionate about Star Wars, and I think that really comes across. I would really recommend listening to one of her recent interviews. I forget which podcast it was, but it was really great, honestly, and I think it instilled a lot more excitement for me, too. I was already excited, but even more so after this.
I do want to point out that video, it was a video interview. It was from, Let's Be Frank, Fantastic Frankie on YouTube.
I will link it in the description.
Yeah, that was the interview that everybody was kind of talking about. It's about 45 minutes, and that had some pretty interesting stuff. So
yeah,
maybe
it's
I'll
fantastic.
go back and watch it now, knowing the title of the show and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, she pulled out her Star Wars Atlas. I love a director
really
that has a
did.
Star Wars
She
Atlas.
did
Let's
that.
talk about it.
Yeah, love that.
Rogue One, in many ways, it's a film that connected new audiences with the oldest fans. It was a bittersweet feeling, on the premiere, knowing that it was just one film. But then magic happens, right?
As you can see, we're getting ready. We're building stages, we're rehearsing, we're training, we're trying costumes, we're doing everything to make sure we do the best show.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about the long-awaited Diego Luna show, Andor, coming to Disney Plus in 2022.
I know I'm a hypocrite. Yes, I'm aware. Don't drag me on Twitter. Hypocrite, me. Andor, the show. Andor on Disney Plus. It's being written as a tense, nail-biting spy thriller. It's being created by Tony Gilroy, which is interesting, and it is going to be on Disney Plus in 2022. Joining Diego Luna in this series is going to be Stellan Skarsgård, Adria Arjona, Fiona Shaw, Denise Go, Kyle Soller, and Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. I was so hoping for a Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa.
I was hoping. They're saving that one. They're keeping that one in their sleeve for sure.
I really, really hope so, because
there's no reason he won't be in that show. Absolutely none.
I need it, and it's really frustrating to me that we don't have it yet. But this show included a sizzle reel because they have started production.
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks.
And it looks like, Diego Luna is also an executive producer on the show, which is cool. I think it's really interesting that it's going to be created by Tony Gilroy, because we as Rogue One fans know that reshoots were helmed by Tony Gilroy, and that's how much of the third act changed, all that good stuff. Listen to our Rogue One episode that's coming up
soon. Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about this one, because I don't even know where I was. It's interesting that it's featuring Tony Gilroy, because he crafted a lot of what the end of that movie looked like and what the third act looked like through the reshoots. And to me, it's wondering what perspective he has on the character, and like where Gareth's vision kind of ends and where Tony's kind of picks up, and how we'll see that reflected in a younger Cassian. And so I'm hoping for the best with this one. It included more women announced than men in this announcement, which was cool. I think Adria Arjona is gonna be like his number 2 with him. I don't know what happened to Alan Tudyk, which is really interesting that he's not here. But this sizzle reel was so great, and I had such a great time. And Andor and Diego Luna, and you can catch me buying the merch in 2022. Catch me first in line.
Got her.
At the celebration panel in 2022. I will be there with the Friends of the Force friends, and we will all be like waving our Diego Luna flags.
Yeah, that's going to be the big go-to panel for 2022. It's incredible. And this is probably the show I'm most excited for, honestly. I would say I might be more excited for this than Kenobi, but Diego Luna is such a wonderful addition to Star Wars. Seeing him, post that video a couple weeks ago of him in the gym and working out and getting ready. And yeah, the sizzle reel was so unexpected. Like when it happened, I was like, am I in like a weird fever dream right now? Like what is happening? Rogue One is on my screen. Jenner, so oh my god, I'm crying again. And seeing him give that very empowering speech to Jen, like, we're with you, we'll do this. And we got to see concept art, we got to see some of the set design. All the live action footage they were showing was from Rogue One behind the scenes, but just to see some of the weird stuff they're working on, they showed that one concept art of like a huge Imperial facility with like a bunch of people, a bunch of little desks, like torture droids floating around. I'm like, what is that? Like, they're doing some like undercover stuff. Like maybe that's where they find K2SO, because I know they're retconning the comic, and that's that's okay. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited to see what this does. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. What does that look like? What does that entail? What does that mean for his character? Why is it important that he's in this fight since he was 6 years old? Those are all kinds of questions you have to ask and build on this character. And I know, again, it is revisiting the old, but it's okay to revisit old if you're presenting it in a new way. I think if you're revisiting old and presenting it in the same old way, that's a problem. But if you're building on these characters and giving more emotional weight to Cassian's sacrifice and to all the actions that he takes in Rogue One, it's going to heighten your appreciation a hell of a lot for that film and give you some good Star Wars live action TV. And that's really cool. And that's what these shows should be about. It should be about heightening the emotions of these characters and our appreciations for them. It shouldn't be about nostalgia. It shouldn't be about, we should revisit this because they're a good cash grab. It should be something deep, something important, something, sticking to George Lucas's vision. And I think this show could do that. I think it has a high potential.
Yeah, like I think the potential is there, and I am probably going to eat it up. And what I'm really, really, really hoping for is that it really deep dives into Cassian, and that it doesn't clean up his image, that it doesn't make him any better of a person than he was in the first 10 minutes of Rogue One, where he shot the informant. I want that really kind of slightly gray, like morally on the right side, but like slightly grittier, grayer kind of character that we got in Rogue One. And I want great women characters. I want lots of alliance goodness. I mean, there is stories to tell there. There are stories to tell there. And I think that, going to the old isn't the worst thing in the world. But again, I do want new things. So I'm living in this moment of just, sitting in the middle of this and going, yes, but also, and yeah, you're like,
yeah, no,
yeah,
it's
I
a
want
balance.
this, but also, I'm an absolute sucker for this content specifically.
We're going to spin off here real quick for animation. One of the biggest surprises for me was the lack of animation. There is animation still happening. I thought we were going to get a Rebels sequel series. We are. Not in the way I anticipated or wanted, but that's more on that in a bit. But we are getting The Bad Batch, which is coming out. I don't think they actually mentioned a date for it, which is interesting. We are getting Star Wars Visions, which is an anthology that will bring together 10 visions from several leading Japanese anime studios and is going to give us a new, fresh cultural perspective on Star Wars. Animated short films, I'm here for it. This sounds awesome. I'm actually probably the most excited. I think this is like a really good opportunity to explore some weird Force stuff and like do something just cool and new. Like, let's just go full send, give me that like kind of Avatar: The Last Airbender Star Wars feel. I'm so excited. And then we also have A Droid Story, which is going to be a new Disney Plus series, a special series where it takes us on with a new hero that's a droid, and they're guided by R2-D2 and C-3PO, which is kind of fun. So that'll kind of be probably more for the kids, sort of maybe those like one of those like, short 8-minute animated series, kind of like the Mickey Mouse one that's happening right now. So I'm definitely super excited for The Bad Batch. I saw Kamino in there. I saw Tarkin, Palpatine's Revenge of the Sith speech, the glorious empire, that epic speech that he gives. And then we have Fennec frickin' Shand from The Mandalorian animated. She looks so damn good. Oh my god. I just about lost it. She looks so amazing. I hope Ming-Na Wen is voicing her, because that would be so cool. Oh my god. My head's spinning. It's just crazy. It's so crazy that she's in the show, and I hope she plays a prominent role in it. But that got me even more amped for this show. I love this group of clones. I'm excited to see them kind of go on some new adventures and maybe explore, what it means to be a clone. Maybe explore more of the psyche of being a clone, especially in the wake of Order 66, and like, what does that look like for clones in the wake of Order 66? We always see Darth Vader's perspective. We're going to see Obi-Wan's perspective, but what about all these people who have just turned on their, commanders? And I think that will be a really interesting storyline to develop and get into, and could get really dark and emotional. And I'm very excited for all these animation projects. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I don't feel like I have much to add to The Bad Batch. I don't think it's going to be for me, and that's okay. I haven't watched most of the Clone Wars, and again, helmeted, masked characters, Mandalorians, clones aren't what I gravitate towards. So this might not be for me in that sense, but the animation looked gorgeous. Seeing Fennec
really
Shand there was very cool. Kamino, I freaking love Kamino, obviously. As a prequel fan who doesn't watch the Clone Wars, I know. Don't come at me in my mentions. I know. But yeah, I don't think this one is going to be for me, but I am open to it changing my mind. For Visions is the thing I am excited about, because it's where we get a little bit off the beaten path for the Star Wars. I don't want to say it gets a little weird, but it's definitely off the beaten path in the sense that animated shorts are not something that we typically get or have, and anime is not a style that has been really explored within Star Wars. We kind of got a more anime-like style in Resistance's animation style, and we get mangas for some of the Star Wars books that have become adapted into manga, but we haven't really dove into anime. So I'm really, really, really excited about this, and I am really thrilled to see what stories they're going to tell and what these Japanese anime studios and the creators that are devising these stories behind them have to say. So I'm really, really thrilled about that. Count me as on board for Visions. A droid story is something that, for me, I don't really know. I love R2 and C-3PO, but I don't really know what this is going to be.
It's just going to be weird. It's just going to be fun.
A special Star Wars adventure, an epic journey, introduce us to a new hero. Is the new hero going to be like an 8-year-old person? Like, who knows? How long is this series gonna be? I have no idea, but I do love 3PO, and if we get some good 3PO banter, you can probably count on me watching it. So yeah. That's that on that one.
I think that's one to just be taken very lightly, Yeah, definitely. Kind of like Forky asks a question, the new Baby Groot miniseries. I think it's just gonna be one of those like 8-minute things that allows them to kind of explore visual effects and animation in a new way, and just present it with something familiar, and just be like, this is our new techniques that we're using. We're going to try them out with the show. And if it works, maybe we'll create an entire show using this animation style or this visual effects style. And I think that's kind of the sandbox you have to play in with Star Wars, is try some new things. And I think this could be the perfect way to do that. Try a new sort of style like Star Wars Resistance did, right? 2 seasons gave us this kind of new cell shaded animation. I think this could be the same thing, where it's just going to explore new avenues and hopefully continue to strengthen the animation department, because that cannot go away. Star Wars will not survive without animation, because I know a lot of fans, it'll lose a lot of fans if it goes away from animated content.
Yeah, and animated content is also super accessible to young people, and at the end of the day, Star Wars is meant at its bones for young people. So
yeah,
the animation department, whether they're making shorts or TV shows for younger kids or older kids or adults alike, there's still got to be that spirit of animation and childlike wonder.
Yep, exactly. So this leads us to our next talking point in terms of animation and when it does and is not appropriate. So there's 2 spinoff series coming from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. The first is Rangers of the New Republic. The second is Ahsoka, starring Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. That's going to be a limited series. It says that Rangers of the New Republic is a live-action series, which makes me think it could be maybe more than 1 season.
Yeah.
But it's possible these are just both one series spin-offs or one season spin-offs. So the thing here to note is that it says for Rangers of the New Republic, it's going to intersect with future stories and culminate into a climactic story event. That makes me think it's going to somehow cross over into The Mandalorian, maybe cross over into the Mandalorian series finale. You know, my kind of long-term thought is The Mandalorian is going to focus on reclaiming Mandalore with like Bo-Katan and Din Djarin and Grogu. They're kind of all like team up, maybe Boba Fett still. They're kind of all team up and like retake their home planet and like kind of form this new Mandalore. And maybe this, you know, these other groups or these other cells of people kind of help them with that. And that's this climactic story event that comes to a point. I springboard off of this because the Ahsoka show, if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the Rosario Dawson situation, you can listen to our Chapter 13 recap. I've said my piece there. I definitely have problems with them casting in this way and now creating a whole show about Ahsoka with her in it. I was really bummed about this because I was so dead set on the Rebels sequel series being animated using the Clone Wars style animation. I think that would have been really cool. You can bring Ashley Eckstein back, Tia Sakar, follow Sabine and Ahsoka as they find Thrawn and Ezra, and I think this is what the show will be. I think they're going to find Thrawn because that was set up in The Mandalorian, so obviously that's where they're going to go with the series.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just a little bummed because I was really anticipating for so long continuing Rebels in an animated form, and I just don't really know how to grapple with it yet. And again, with the just Rosario Dawson situation, I'm just kind of like at a loss for words right now, and I really have to like continue thinking about my feelings and trying to process them because I just don't really know where I'm at. I'm just not really feeling super, super excited for this project, either of these projects, either. Because I think the Rangers of the New Republic could be a Gina Carano show with Cara Dune, and it's possible they recast Cara Dune. I would be fine with that.
They're not recasting Cara Dune. There's no way.
They could. I hope they do that because I think there is something there that they could work with, but it's not going to work with somebody who stands against every principle that Star Wars is for. So just a whole mix of emotions with these shows. I don't know where your thoughts are at. Again, somebody who doesn't like The Mandalorian, and these are two spin-offs of that, but also somewhat a spin-off of Rebels, for good or for bad.
Yeah, so I'm just going to keep nodding and saying, yeah. I must hand it to the graphic design people on the Ahsoka logo because it's really slick. It's
really
hot.
Good. It's amazing. Yeah.
With like the kind of World Between Worlds Force space blue
Jedi Fallen Order. Yeah.
Back. Yeah. It's really solid. And I will say
and the Chiss Ascendancy too. Those are all like Chiss stars, how on the cover of the book. How they got all those circles that are kind of intersecting,
So, anyways, there's no guarantee that this is the Rebels sequel.
True.
But at the same time, I would not put it past them to make this the Rebels sequel. And then if Mandalorian ties into Rebels and like it's all about finding, Ezra, and then Ezra and Ahsoka and are battling Thrawn, and that plays into the Mandalorian and, the client and Grogu and, the whole thing, plus this whole Rangers of the New Republic and the establishment behind whatever they're doing, if that is sort of an establishment thing, like, that can all culminate in something very large. This is kind of where we get to, like, the MCU-ification of the Star Wars, that these things are all going to cross over, and I touched on that, earlier in this discussion. So, I don't know. As somebody who's not a Mando fan, this isn't really for me. A couple people on Twitter have said that the Rangers of the New Republic sounds a little bit like a cop show, and I can't say I disagree. So, like, that's a thing. I give these shows the space to change my mind. My opinion on them is not deadlocked, but I, like you, have unsettled thoughts and feelings and a continued conversation happening in my head about Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and that does cast a shadow on this whole idea. And Rangers of the New Republic, because we didn't get any sort of casting announcements or anything like that, we are left up in the air about whether this is a Gina Carano, Cara Dune spinoff. So I can't get it.
And it's very implied too with The Mandalorian because she's given the kind of badge, the police badge at the end of one of the
power,
episodes. You know, it's kind of like you're a policeman now, you're a marshal, and that's what makes me think this is her show. I can tell you right now, if you're listening to this podcast, again, listen to our Mando recaps to hear more of my thoughts, but I absolutely condemn everything that she stands for, and I will not cover a show on this podcast with her in it. I will not give any sort of airtime to it. That's not what I'm here to do. So I hope this is not her thing, because there is some good potential here to maybe learn about Hosnian Prime and like learn about the Republic, you know, learn about the politics. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a political show.
No,
but maybe we can kind of learn about some of that stuff in the background, you know, like there could be some fun things there to just at least get a taste of in the background. And I don't want it to be overshadowed by like really crappy casting choices that takes away from all the hard work of everybody else on these projects.
Yeah, it is disappointing. And again, go listen to the Mando recap shows, because I believe Brad and Tori do a great job on that.
Thanks.
But yeah, these aren't for me. And it's kind of a bummer, because this clearly feels like the direction of where they're going and like the new big thing. And it sucks that it doesn't feel like it is for me at all. So, yeah, I don't know. They exist. Good for Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau if this is what they really want to do and this is really how they see Star Wars. Then like, who am I to tell them they're wrong or that, you know? But it sucks. It sucks that it's not for me.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know, I'm not trying to be negative or try to, you know, I'm trying to find the silver linings in all of it, but it's kind of the two things I was least excited for, and I do think there is a conversation to have as well of saying, here's a whole industry full of people, diverse creators that we can choose and pick from and give the next iteration of Star Wars to. And who do we pick? We pick the two guys that already have a show to make two more shows. And so there's a conversation there of, okay, not only are we mining similar parts of the universe, but we're mining the same exact creators. So and maybe it makes sense because, again, it's all culminating into The Mandalorian, but I still think there could be something where it's like, you know, they're executive producing. Well, I guess actually these series say they're executive produced by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. So it's very possible they might hire a different director for the entire series, you know? So I guess I hope maybe they go that route. I don't want Jon Favreau directing every episode or writing every episode. I think they should kind of expand the box here a little bit. And I think there maybe is some potential there to say, oh, you know, we're executive producing, but we're hiring on X director and XYZ writers to do this thing with us. And again, that goes back to our conversation of why I think TV works. And I hope they create that kind of atmosphere around these projects. So,
yeah.
Next on the list is Lando. This was a huge surprise. Oh my gosh. I'm actually very excited for this show. I'm going to be honest with you. I love Donald Glover. He's great. He's funny. His music is brilliant. You should all listen to it. I just found out he released an album in March. How did I go the whole year not knowing this? I'm really upset about it, but I'm going to listen to it tomorrow with Taylor Swift. This is going to be created by Justin Simien, who is the creator of the critically acclaimed Dear White People. And he's a huge Star Wars fan. It's pretty exciting, honestly. And I think this is going to maybe follow the Calrissian Chronicles. That would be kind of fun because, you know, we see him in Solo talk about, you know, Calrissian Chronicles. The question is, does this take place before or after Solo? Could Kira show up? Is L3 involved in the show? Also, I think my dream for it would be maybe present day Lando Calrissian to be like maybe telling the story to like Janna, maybe telling his story, and then like having flashbacks, kind of like The Hobbit. The Hobbit kind of does that throughout its 3 movies, and it's like framed within this sort of narrative of Bilbo writing in his book, and we're seeing the story play out on screen. I would love that sort of framing device for this show, and it just gets Billy D. Williams back. You know, I think you can't have a Lando series without him, and that would be kind of fun. I don't think he'd be prominently in it. It'd sort of be the bookends of the series. You know, him sitting down to tell the story, him closing the chapter on the story once it's done. What do you think of Lando and, you know, what this could maybe potentially give us?
Yeah, I thought that this was interesting and maybe the one that went most under the radar from this announcement, you know, because I feel like we did not get a ton of information about this one. We just literally all we know is that it's a Lando show by Justin Simien. And that it's going to be an event series, whatever that means, which I don't know if that tells me that it's going to be like big and bold or Actually, I'm Googling it right now. We're going to find out. So by the term event series, it kind of tells me that it feels like it's going to be a limited and big and punchy because they're bringing back Lando. The question here is really, is it an old Lando series or a young Lando series or both? Because we did not get any casting announcements related to this at all.
You're right.
Which I thought was, because I also assumed immediately that it was like a Donald Glover show. And then I was talking to somebody on Twitter, it might have been Amy Rickow, who was like, well, he might pass it up because he's so busy. And maybe that they just like don't have casting set in stone yet. I was like, that's really interesting. Do you recast again, or do you go with an old Lando series because Billy D. Williams will say yes to coming back as Lando? And then what can you do with Billy D as Lando? Or like, what can you do with them both? And I think the idea of maybe old Lando talking to Jannah or the Calrissian Chronicles allows them to bridge that gap and kind of have both of them together. I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not like a Lando superfan or anything, so this didn't stick out to me in the same way that Andor does. But heck, sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hope it's great.
And I mean, we're talking about diverse creatives too. I think we have to acknowledge the fact that it's a black lead, a black creator. I mean, we need this type of story. I mean, this is a huge thing. This is a huge thing that shouldn't be overlooked. And yeah, even though it is revisiting, this is a big step for that type of storytelling, and I'm very excited about it because again, when you have a guy who made a movie called Dear White People, you know it's gonna be good, and that it's gonna have the right sort of perspective and focus, and we need that in Star Wars, and I think a Lando show is the appropriate lens to do that through, and also maybe give us some new characters that we can relate to and that people can relate to and see themselves in. But I don't know if I would vibe with an old Lando show. I'll take it, but I would really love for it to really be Donald Glover and Lando telling the story to Jannah as the framing device. I think that's kind of where we're heading, and I feel like Donald Glover has to be coming back because again, you have the age thing with Billy. I mean, he could pass away anytime, so that's a huge risk if they're doing a whole show about him. So that's like the reason I think it's going to be a Donald Glover show, but we'll see. Time will tell. I have to say though, I want to address the elephant in the room. The Lando logo looks exactly, I'm not even kidding, it looks exactly like the Friends of the Force logo.
It really does.
I'm not saying it was stolen. But it looks the exact same. It's the same exact colors. It's the yellow letters with the blue bar around it and then the red outside. I posted it on Twitter if you want to go check it out. I was just like, I don't know what to think about this. And it reminds me back in October when I had my original Friends of the Force logo, which was just Friends of the Force, and there was a blue and red lightsaber, Kylo and Rey's on the outskirts. And then there was a shirt design that did the exact same thing, and I was like, what is happening? So this is the second time this has happened. It's just really strange. Again, I think it's completely coincidental. It's just the strangest thing ever. And like, listen, if if you want to hire me on as a graphic designer, that's fine. I always like.
I'll take the paycheck.
I'll take the paycheck.
Yeah, no, it is a pretty crazy town.
Yeah,
it is really crazy to look at how similarly they look because it's really the same exact colors. The blue is like very slightly different. The red is the same. The yellow is the same.
It's really weird.
I mean, they're probably, aren't they the crawl and title card colors or similarly to those?
Sort of, yeah. So it's a time. It's
pretty funny.
I was laughing about it all night.
Also, hire Brad because, I mean, if you think that's pretty decent, so much that you would like to do something similar in your logo or get some inspiration from it, he does way better graphic design now. It's even classier. It's even cooler.
Don't flatter me.
The colors are even better. No, I will because your graphic design is actually quite good. I'm very impressed.
I want to give credit where credit's due as well. By the way, Mariana Avila is the one who created the logo for our show, but I collaborated with her to kind of pick out the design and the colors and everything like that. So, but she is the excellent artist behind all of our Friends of the Force cover art for the podcast. So check out her art if you can.
Yeah, she's great. So yeah, that was pretty funny to see. So
yeah,
we do love to see a funny coincidence.
It was just kind of one of those head scratchers. I'm just like, this is a good story to tell people. It's funny. So I hope you all enjoyed that story too. All right. Last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about actually, this is probably the biggest one. But before we get to that, a couple notable announcements. The Willow TV series is happening from John Chu. Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford is coming back to arrive in July 2022. That is going to be very exciting. And we also have The Children of Blood and Bone from Lucasfilm, which is coming. And that is based off of a really great novel that I haven't read yet by Tomi Adeyemi. So I'm very excited to get to that. There's 2 books in the series right now. Just, a couple other projects going on at Lucasfilm. Very, very exciting stuff. Very excited for both of those.
Yeah, they are all pretty cool. I can't say that any one of them is totally sticking out to me because I haven't seen Willow. I also have been one of the few feels YA readers that has not read Children of Blood and Bone yet. But both of these seem quite cool. And Indiana Jones, who doesn't love that? I mean, really.
Okay. Sarah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Give us all the details of how and why the prequel renaissance continues. Why it is just, we are just vibing. We are out here vibing, headphones on, just vibing. Just vibing, like sweating, screaming, crying, vibing. Just so many vibes. The vibes are immaculate in this room.
They really are.
We are one step closer to our dream panel at Celebration that we've talked about many, many times before.
We are!
Just saying.
My God, we so are. Oh my God.
Sarah.
Yeah.
What is going on with old Ben?
Literally, I have no idea. Just kidding. I have a little idea. So the show is officially called Obi-Wan Kenobi, and if you look at the logo, the last I in Kenobi is his lightsaber hilt.
Love that.
So,
Love that.
So great.
And the sand came over the graphic and formed the title.
I had to laugh.
Too good.
I really did.
Too good.
But basically,
should have seen it coming.
The biggest news that came out of this was that Hayden Christensen will be returning as Darth Vader in this series. Quote from Kathleen Kennedy, "This will be the rematch of the century."
Oh.
That's a bold statement. And I will say that, I am so thrilled that Hayden is back. My picture with Hayden, with my friends over at the last fan page, is my computer background. Peak moment of my life. But I don't necessarily want Darth Vader in this series too much, but I am also so happy that Ewan and Hayden are back. Why does the prequel renaissance continue, Brad? Because they are both still super hot.
True.
10 out of 10.
11 out of 10.
Yeah, Star Wars is tragedy, unfortunately for us. We all love some Obi-Wan pain. I don't know. We talked about this in our From a Certain Point of View, Empire Strikes Back. I just want Obi-Wan in pain. Because it makes me get some interesting emotional content there that we can really dive into. But if they're gonna meet, if they're gonna fight, it's gonna be incredible. And Hayden Christensen said it was such an incredible journey playing Anakin Skywalker. Of course, they aren't on the greatest of terms when we last saw them. It'll be interesting to see what an amazing director like Deborah Chow has in store for us all. I'm excited to work with Ewan again. It feels good to be back. And I just am sobbing in the corner. That, and then Ewan said that, I think Ewan had a quote that was I'm so glad that I get to come back together. The great thing about this is that I get to come back together.
Yeah.
And I was just
directed by the Deborah Chow. Deborah Chow,
who is excellent.
Queen. Yeah, very good. She's one of my favorite filmmakers in Star Wars. This all around is just crazy to me. And I thought the fact that they said he's coming back as Darth Vader and not Anakin Skywalker, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Because in A New Hope, the whole thing is Vader saying, I feel a presence I have not felt since. And that's it. That's the end of the line. Mm-hmm. So, since when? This is the since when. This is the presence he's not felt since. It's not since Mustafar. It's whatever happens in this series. And let me tell you, if I see a young, kind of middle-aged Ewan McGregor fight Darth Vader with Hayden Christensen inside, and if they bring Nick Gillard back to do the stunts for them, I will lose my goddamn mind. And if I get to see that on Disney Gallery, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and see all that behind the scenes footage, which, to be another disclaimer, I think we're going to get a Disney Gallery series for all of these projects, which is incredible. I think we're going to get behind the scenes footage for everything. They did it for Frozen. They did it for Mandalorian. I think it's going to be something that they try to do for all of their original content, even Marvel. I think it's really not that hard. They have the resources to do it. It's pretty standard stuff. So to think of them fighting and to see like where that fight takes place, it's not going to take place on Tatooine, obviously, but what kind of things is Obi-Wan doing? I do think it's going to be sad boy hours. He's going to be a lot of just isolated in his hut, watching over baby Luke. I would imagine Joel Edgerton comes back as Owen Lars. I forget the actress's name for Aunt Beru, but I imagine she'll come back as well. In my head. So there's a lot going on here, but it really needs to be an Obi-Wan that is really, really at the lowest of lows. And like what makes him leave Tatooine for the briefest of moments, maybe to go confront Vader at some point, you know? Or maybe it's just Vader kind of reaching out to him through the Force and trying to find him, and they're having these like weird Force Skype sessions, like Kylo Ren and Rey, you know, like that'd be kind of cool. They're a dyad. But there's just so many possibilities, and I gotta be honest, like as much as we talk about old and new, I'm kind of freaking excited to see Darth Vader again. Like, I'm gonna be honest, Sarah, the breathing gets me. It gets to me. Like, I can't imagine waking up at like 5 a.m. the morning before work and like turning on Kenobi and like the episode starts and it's just like, and I'm just like, what is happening? I'm like literally shaking talking about it right now. I'm getting so excited. But like, I love this whole series, like this concept of the series. I want it. I want it now. And it begins filming in March of 2021. So it starts in a couple months. I assume it won't be out. The Cassian series isn't out till 2022, and that's already filming. I would imagine this is going to come out after Cassian. I could be wrong. It could be before Cassian. Who knows? But who knows? You know, never know. So this is incredible stuff. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? The vibes are immaculate, as I said. I don't know what other way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm such a hypocrite because the shows that I'm most excited about are Andor and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Visions. That's the new one I'm really hyped about.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember the way I felt last August when they announced the Kenobi show and he came out on the stage, Ewan, and Kathleen Kennedy asked him, like, why are you here or whatever? And he's like, I'm gonna play Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And I just like...
And he goes, yes.
Yeah. The vibes were immaculate then, and knowing that there's going to be this team up, and by team up I do mean fight or rivalry, is awesome. I hope that we get a lot of Force exploration. I hope it's not too punchy in terms of battles and stuff. I hope it's a lot more pensive and small in scope until we get to those big Vader moments. But who knows? But I am on board. I am so excited to see an official trailer. Oh! That Ewan quote I was talking about earlier was from a tweet I saw that was from the clip that they showed, the sizzle or whatever. Yes, that was what that was from. He goes, I'm so glad that this has brought me back together with Hayden. And I'm just thrilled for Hayden. I want Hayden to get paychecks. So, I'm here for it.
Yes. Yeah. It's this is probably, I feel like I've said this every time we talk about a new thing. I'm like, this is the thing I'm most excited for. No, this is actually the thing I'm most excited for, and the thing I think I have the most hope and faith in terms of storytelling. Because again, going back to our conversation about new and old, this is taking something old, which is Obi-Wan, and presenting it in a new way. If they give me the same old Obi-Wan, that's going to be a huge disappointment. But I don't think they're going to do that. Like, why else would you create this show if not to show us Obi-Wan dealing with the ramifications of his failures? That is where they're going. I will die on that hill. And if they don't go that route, I'll wear a clown suit for a podcast episode. Who knows? I think it's going to happen. And I'm excited to cover it on the podcast, to be determined podcast series with whoever I want to host it with. But
how many mini series are you going to have going at once? Really,
that's the other thing, Sarah.
Don't do them all. When
am I going to get sleep? When am I going to get sleep? I edit these episodes. I'm going to have to hire an editor. I swear to God.
You just have to figure out what most interests you and what you actually want to talk about.
But it all interests me. But, I think if they're not happening at the same time, I'll get some sleep. I'll get some sleep every now and then. But I'm very excited because
I want you to have a regular sleep schedule, Brad. You deserve that.
It's overrated. But the chance to get to sit here and talk about Star Wars on a weekly basis and have people listen to it, thank you all for listening to our ramblings. And it's just fun. And it's exciting to talk about these things in a grander scope, talk about them in the context of the film industry, talk about them in terms of streaming, which we had conversations on. We wanted to really approach this conversation today holistically because there's a lot going into this versus new Star Wars content. It's really about where is the entertainment industry heading? Where is our viewing habits heading? I do think we're really in a golden age of television right now. We have been for quite some time, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. It's really just at its peak. And with the COVID shutdowns and the theaters kind of up in the air, we just don't know if we're going to get that same theatrical experience. And even Kevin Feige said they're leaning more into television for Marvel, for the MCU. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just get more television storytelling. And I wouldn't be surprised at some point if we get a TV or a movie on Disney Plus for Star Wars. That's a exclusively streamed movie. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibilities, like an animated feature film on Disney Plus where you can only get it there, So the sky's the limit. And I think the next 4 years of Star Wars is going to be the make or break for the franchise. And what they decide to do after that will also be the make or break for there's going to be that 2024 date, when Disney hopes to have its subscriber base up to almost 300 million people. That 2024 date is going to tell us a lot. Because we'll already had all these series and a Patty Jenkins Star Wars film with Taika just on the horizon. It's going to tell us a lot. It's going to be huge.
And I think it will be really interesting to see in the next 3 or 4 years, where if we get more things like the Mandalorian spinoff series, event, culmination thing, if that continues to happen. And I think it will be interesting to see what the fan base looks like. And if they've retained people, if they've gotten new people, if some people have dropped. Like, I'll be really curious to see what the makeup of it all looks like, the landscape looks like in 3 years. So, I mean, there are things to look forward to. For me, looking at the whole thing, I don't feel strongly one way or the other about it all put together, but there are pieces of it that excite me, and I think that's enough right now. And I hope that the things that I'm not so excited about right now change my mind in a couple years or whenever they decide to give me more information.
It's better than nothing. When I watched Comic-Con last summer and to see Kevin Feige up there on stage with the entire cast of all these upcoming movies and to see this huge timeline of events that were coming, we had like all the new movies, all the new TV shows. And I was wondering, why hasn't Lucasfilm done this? And I think there's a problem with secrecy and trying to keep things under wraps. I don't think that works anymore because either leakers get to it quicker and then your messages are mixed. I think to control the narrative and just put all of it out there like this, I think it's good. Just let us know what's going on and what we have to look forward to, because otherwise you're going to lose interest. And I think this was kind of the kick, the adrenaline kick the franchise needed, even if to just keep the conversation going, especially after last year and the divisiveness of Tross. And it's really been needed. And I think this conversation will continue for many months as we get more details, as we get closer to Celebration, as we have panels. I mean, the size of Celebration itself is going to be pretty massive. It's going to be pretty crazy. And I'm really excited to look forward to what that looks like you said. I mean, and I don't know how much more room I have for Funko Pops on my shelf.
You don't.
I don't. It's the reason I'm still single, but it's fine.
It's not.
Because there's many other reasons.
No, but your Funko Pops are just there. They're just things, they're not keeping anybody away.
Listen,
I'm
just excited.
COVID exists, though. Nobody's going anywhere.
I'm just excited to buy all the new Funko Pops for all these new TV shows. Like, give me the Bail Organa Funko Pop, which we don't have yet. Mon Mothma Funko Pop. Come on. A new Lando Funko Pop. Oh, Obi-Wan Funko Pop. Just give it to me.
He's like, what content are we getting that will translate to Funko Pops? That's what I really desire. I don't need the shows. I just want the pops.
I want the merch.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I'm saving up. For sure,
right.
for sure. Okay. Before we started this episode, we go, we'll talk about 30 minutes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit longer, like maybe an hour over, a little bit more than an hour over than what we thought.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, do I even record an episode? And we're like, maybe we get like a little thing. Maybe we get like a little bit of news.
No, just slap it right on us for 4 hours and make us cry.
Like, give us 10 new things. Give us like
plus Marvel, plus Pixar. They did us
like that. They really did us like that.
Yeah, Marvel was just kind of. I was out of my mind at that point. I'm still upset we don't have any details on Spider-Man 3. Yeah. Where is Spider-Man 3 happening? Oh, God. I love that. I can't wait for that film. But yeah, this was just a great thing. I hope they do more of these in the future, and I hope they see that the fact that they're trending pretty much everything on Twitter right now is proof that this is the way announcements should be fed to people. Like, this is the kind of discussions you want happening online. You don't want like a blog post and like that's it. Like, no, this is, make it a spectacle, make it a big thing. And it worked. And in the year 2020, we don't have any sort of joy whatsoever. This was what we needed, and very excited about it. So, Sarah, do you have any final thoughts on the Disney investor meeting, the future of Star Wars, and what excites you the most in this quote unquote significant expansion of Star Wars?
I feel like if I start talking again, we'll just be here for another hour.
We could.
So, I will say that like I feel like I've said a lot of my feelings throughout this episode. Ultimately, it was quite the thing. And we really have a big picture of what the Walt Disney Company is aiming to do with Disney Plus in all of its realms. So it's interesting. It's all very interesting. And in the process of it all, I'm really looking forward to the couple of things that have piqued my interest. And I hope that there will be hidden gems throughout it all. And that's my final thought.
I'm more hopeful than I was for the future of Star Wars, especially for the future of Disney Plus. I think they're really going to have a competitive edge over many of the different streaming services these next few years. And I think HBO Max has shaken up the entire media climate more than we realize at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to see what entertainment in our living rooms look like, and how we consume content, how that changes, and what Star Wars looks like, because Star Wars is continuing to be an ever-evolving thing, and it's going to keep evolving with the times, but I hope it still always stays close to the heart of what makes it special, the spirit of George Lucas, and kind of never losing sight of what made it Star Wars in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a point where it could be oversaturated, and I hope we never reach that point. And I think that's a fine line to walk. And I think it depends on, are you layering these things on together at the same time, or is it just kind of a year-round thing? And, if it's a year-round thing, it might work, because it's like, I'm not going to tune in for these 8 weeks for The Mandalorian, but I'm going to tune in for the next 8 weeks after that for Cassian. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to watch. And that could be the beauty of it. More Star Wars in the hopes that there is going to be something for everybody. And I think that's kind of ultimately what we need to achieve with the franchise is you're never going to make everybody happy with one thing, but maybe if we have many things, you'll make everybody happy. And I think that is maybe the goal of what they're doing, on top of obviously, capitalism and making money and building the pockets of their investors. And that's what this call is ultimately for. But
yeah,
there's also, the imaginative spirit of these stories. So that's my thoughts on the matter. I am so excited. That's it for this episode, this emergency podcast. Sarah, thank you for joining me for this almost 2-hour episode unexpectedly.
I mean, this day has just been very long anyway. We sat together for like 3.5 hours on a Zoom call, watching the thing.
5.
We might as well.
We're on hour 5 right now, yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I mean,
you watched me eat an entire Domino's pizza on here a couple hours ago. At least I think you did. Maybe I turned my camera off.
I don't think you did, but you watched me eat a sandwich while we were recording this episode.
Yeah, I was impressed, honestly. I was wondering if you were ever going to talk.
Well, you kept talking, so I thought I was in the clear to eat the sandwich.
Well, I kept talking because you were eating the sandwich, and I was like, I don't know when to stop talking. I was like, she's taking a big bite. We're very hungry, folks.
We got through it. We got through it anyway.
This is the behind-the-scenes scoop you will only get if you're still 1 hour and 48 minutes into this episode, and you deserve it.
We hope that you've kind of enjoyed listening to us talk about it, and also that you found something in these announcements that really spoke to you as well. And I hope that there's something that you, the listener, are looking forward to. And I hope you're having a good day.
Me too. Everybody stay hydrated.
Of course,
stay safe.
Always.
Wear your mask. Socially distance. Happy holidays. If you want to know more about our episodes coming up, we are going to be doing a Rogue One episode where we had a ton of fan submissions that got sent in, and we're going to be talking about the film that made it all happen, that made this Cassian series happen.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff. If you're a Mandalorian fan, our series Clan of Two is hosted by myself and Tori Fox. That is every Sunday. We have 2 more episodes left, but we are also, I believe at this point, going to be covering the Disney Gallery series as well, which is very exciting. So stay tuned for that. And to close out 2020, we are doing an episode previewing the High Republic with lipstick and lightsabers. Alex and Shannon over there. Going to be very fun. We're going to talk about the past, present, and future of Star Wars publishing, much like we are talking about the past, present, and future now of Star Wars films and TV. As kind of the all-encompassing vision of Star Wars that we're trying to kind of round out the year with as we go into this next phase, because I think 2021 is going to be a huge turning point for the franchise with the High Republic, with all these new projects on the horizon, getting filmed. It's an exciting time for sure. But stay tuned for all those fun episodes, and we have a lot of good book reviews, interviews coming up at the start of the new year if you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and if you like hearing my voice, I'll be there. And if you don't, too bad. I'll still be there.
You might want to listen to different podcasts if you don't like our voices.
No, you still want to listen to Friends of the Force.
Yeah, we're great. We're friends. Friends of the Force. We should have a theme song.
That's a good one. I like it.
Maybe I can hire somebody for that.
You can hire me.
Okay. Sarah.
Yeah.
When you're not writing and producing our next hit song on Friends of the Force, where can our listeners find you online, and what do you got coming up?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Goodreads, my favorite social media, at SCH221. What do I have coming up? I have work, and I have podcasting with you.
Fun.
That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Congrats. Congrats on all the good stuff you're doing in life. You're doing great.
Thank you.
For 2020.
I'm really trying.
As for me, you can find me personally at Brad Whipple on Twitter, where I shitpost, talk about Paddington, or talk about Spider-Man 3 at this point in time. You can follow our podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/Friends of the Force. Speaking of which, Sarah and I are doing a Phantom Menace novelization discussion. That's going to be going up sometime this month, and we are so excited to dig into that book. Thank you to our current patrons, Anna, Cheryl, Christina, Deborah, Donnie, Elegy, Jessica, Marie Claire, Marvin, Neil, Rachel, Sarah, and T. And if you're so kind in listening to this episode, please leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to help other people find the show, join the Friends of the Force community, and join in on our discussion. And we can talk all things the future of Star Wars, because that is fun. It is a fun time to speculate and get excited. That is it for this episode of Friends of the Force. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
Bye.